I'd like you all to close your eyes just for a second and think of a place that is sacred. A landscape like Machu Picchu or Mount Kailash. These are some of the most extraordinary places on our Earth, and they're actually the places that sometimes we afford our least level of protection. I'm an architect and I'm interested in conserving these sacred places, and I do this through an organization called Studio Reed. So in April of 2008, these photographs were taken by a mining company who had discovered an uncontacted tribe that was living deep in the Amazon rainforest. And to me, these photos were absolutely mesmerizing. These are a group of human beings who had never had any contact with the outside world. And looking closer at them, they might actually appear to be primitive, but actually they've figured out something where we have failed miserably. They've understood how to live in harmony with their environments. So what do they know that we once knew? And is this knowledge lost, or is it just forgotten? Well, the good news is that this knowledge isn't lost and it's not forgotten. It's just hidden in some of our remotest locations around the world. And at Studio Reed, these are the types of places that we're interested in researching. Like these living bridges that are made by the Wakasis tribe in northern India. They make these bridges out of training the root systems of trees that grow along the river corridors. And these are the only bridges that can actually withstand the flow of the monsoonal rivers. And so as an architect, obviously I look at these images and I wonder, why don't we look at these types of infrastructures as a precedent for figuring out how we can solve some of our failing infrastructural constructions in a modern context? Or like the Subac system. This is the most biodiverse, sustainable agrarian system known to man, and exists without the use of any pesticides or fertilizers, and it's existed for 1,000 years. And last year, it was actually finally World Heritage listed. And sometimes World Heritage is a really great thing, but also sometimes it can have the opposite effect. And in the last few years, we've seen a group of people around the world who are called conservation refugees that are emerging. And in Africa, there's approximately 12 million of these conservation refugees. And these are people who are displaced because of the designation of national parks and protected areas. So in Bali, we're working with the ministers and with the farmers to create a long-term plan for the development of livelihoods for tourism and conservation, all to coexist together. And this plan is called Pintu Gerbang Tanah Suci, and it means a gateway to sacred lands. And really what we're envisioning is a new model for protecting sacred ecosystems and their communities whose daily lives relies on an understanding of the natural cycles of their environment, like the cycle of growing rice that's depicted up here in this image. These places are living monuments, and the protection of the lives of the people and of their rituals and of their landscapes is what we're interested in. So now the threat in Bali is tourism, and that comes from the designation of the World Heritage. And with 3 million tourists going to Bali every year, it's literally in danger of being loved to death. So we're working to assist the World Heritage community to create their own vision for their future. But one thing that we found is that working in remote communities across 19,000 hectares of sacred rice terraces, in a highly participatory process, and often from the other side of the world, it sometimes has its limitations. So in collaboration with the IEEE, we're developing the technology to create an interactive ebook that would digitize some of the community consultation process. And in doing that, we're hoping to open up the entire design process to everybody who lives in the 21 villages of the whole World Heritage area. So last year, as Andrew mentioned, Steve Lansing and I, we both spoke here together. We wrote a spiritual guidebook to the cultural landscapes of Bali. And this year, we're working on digitizing that guidebook, along with synthesizing a ticketing process that would actually give control back to the people who live in the World Heritage area, so they can control all of the finances that are coming into this area, and also all of the tourism interactions, which is really important for people in their cultural landscape. And an example of this control would be allowing the Subac farmers to close down their sacred landscapes on the occasion of some of their special ceremonies. So when you look at this last photo, I want to pose to you a question. Do you see the past, or do you see the future? And if it's the future that you see, just like me, then the time for us to act is now. Thanks very much.